Hi everyone. Let's start O-level chemistry, paper 2 of October-November 2025, variance 21. Question number 1. Choose from the following compounds to answer the question. By the way, this compound is methanol. This compound is ethanol. This compound is called cyclopropane. Why cyclo? Because it has a cyclic ring sort of a structure, right? And we have discussed this in class in isomerism. So it's cyclopropane. Why propane? Because single bond exists between the carbon atom. This is propene because it contained double bond between the carbon atom. This is basically an ester because it has COO group. So it is methyl and it is propanoate. So its name is methyl propanoate. This is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbon atoms of carboxylic acid. So it has to be pentanoic acid. And this compound has ester along with a double bond. All right. So remember one thing, compound contain one functional group, like in such examples, but some compounds contain more than one functional groups. Like in this case, we have alkene and we have an ester. And obviously, this sort of naming is not gonna included in your O-level syllabus, which is why examiner not gonna ask uh, about the name of such sort of compounds which contain more than one functional groups. All right. Usually we discuss such issues in A-levels classes. All right. Uh, each compound can be used once, more than once, or not at all. State which compound is methanol. Compound A is basically methanol. Is manufactured by fermentation of aqueous glucose. So when glucose is fermented, we'll get ethanol. So ethanol is basically compound B. Is a carboxylic acid, and obviously compound F is a carboxylic acid. Is a saturated hydrocarbon, so it's cyclopropane, which is basically C. Is formed by the reaction between methanol and propanoic acid. So whenever any alcohol react with any acid, then always esters are formed. So when we say methanol and propanoic acid, obviously methyl propanoate is going to be the ester. So compound E is going to be the right answer in this part. State which compounds, all right, which two compounds, in fact, have the same molecular formula. Oh, same molecular formula. Okay. So I think E and G, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbon atoms. How many hydrogen atoms we have? 3 plus 2, 5. 5 plus 3, 8. And we have 2 oxygen atom also. Let's talk about compound G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. 4 carbon atom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. So it's not gonna E. Basically, F and G. Let's check. Compound F has 5 carbon atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many hydrogen atoms? 3 plus 2, 5. 5 plus 2, 7. 7 plus 2, 9. Plus 1, 10. 10 hydrogen atoms and 2 oxygen atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one is 5 carbon atoms. And then 3 plus 1, 4. 4 plus 1, 5. 5 plus 3, 8. No, it's not gonna. Oh, I've got the idea. I got it. I got it. Look at this structure. We have 3 carbon atoms and we have 6 hydrogen atoms. Similarly, in this compound, we have 3 carbon atoms and we have 6 hydrogen atoms. So both of them have same molecular formula, but both of them have different structural formula, which means both of them are isomers of each other. And we have discussed this example in isomerism of alkenes. All right. So C and D have the same molecular formula. All right. So that's the end of question number one. Usually, this question belongs to general chemistry, uh, but this question is different from the previous ones. And this question is specifically belong to organic chemistry, and that's surprising for me. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. A sample of sulfur found on the planet Mars contains four isotopes. Okay. The mass of first isotope is 32, 33, 34, and 36. And these are the percentage abundances of the four isotopes. Describe one difference between the isotopes of sulfur 32 and sulfur 33. See, both of them have same number of protons and electrons, but obviously they have different number of neutrons. So number of neutrons are different. Also, you can write different mass number. So both the answers are acceptable. Explain why all the isotopes of sulfur have safe chemical properties. By the way, the chemical property depends on number of electrons. Okay, since both since isotopes have same number of electrons, which is why they have same chemical properties. Sulfur isotopes have same number of electrons. So they have same chemical properties. Okay, when they have same number of electrons, obviously they will have the same configuration also. Okay. Now the next part is show by calculation that the relative atomic mass of sulfur for this sample is 32.09. Okay. Um, if you remember, we have discussed specifically this area in the class, that in order to determine the relative atomic mass of any element, like in this case, we need to find out the atomic mass of sulfur, we need to multiply the mass of first isotope into percentage abundance of first isotope plus mass of second isotope into percentage abundance of second isotope plus mass of third into percentage abundance of third isotope plus mass of fourth isotope into abundance of fourth isotope and divided by the total abundance. See, we have discussed that in theory classes, right? So I'm going to apply the same formula here. So mass of first isotope is 32 into percentage abundance of first isotope is 95.04 plus mass of second isotope 33 into percentage abundance of second isotope 0.75 plus Mass of third isotope 34 into percentage abundance of third isotope 4.20 plus mass of fourth isotopes, which is 36, into percentage abundance of fourth isotope, which is 0.01, divided by the total abundance. And we need to add all these values to get the total abundance. So let me check. 95.04 plus 0.75 plus 4.2 plus zero point 0. My bad. I didn't on the calculator, guys. 95.04 plus 0.75 plus 4.2 plus zero point 0.01. So it's going to be 100. Okay. So the answer, let me check. 32 into 95.04 plus 33 into 0.75 plus 34 into 4.2 plus 36 into 0.01. So it's basically 3209.19 divided by 100. So divided by 100, so it's going to be 32.0919. So basically, it's 32.09. And that's the answer is given in this question. All right. So we have show this calculation entirely. I hope it makes sense to you. That's an easy question, by the way. Last question is question number 3. Sodium hydrogen carbonate decomposes when heated. Figure 3.1 shows the reaction pathway diagram for the decomposition of sodium hydrogen carbonate. Okay, by the way, the energy of product is higher and the energy of reactant is lower, which means this reaction is endothermic. If reaction is endothermic, then this is going to be the activation energy. And this is going to be the enthalpy change. And during theory classes, I've told you clearly. So whenever examiner talks about endothermic reaction, the arrow of enthalpy change has to be upwards. Because for exothermic reaction, the enthalpy change arrow needs to be downwards. Okay, if you remember. Identify the energy change. Energy changes level A and B. So level A is activation energy. Okay. And energy change B is enthalpy change. So for all endothermic reaction, enthalpy change has to be positive. All right. Use the reaction pathway diagram to explain why the decomposition of sodium hydrogen carbonate is endothermic. Because energy of product is greater than that of reactant. Okay, next part. Describe a chemical test for carbon dioxide test. Bubble the gas through lime water. Or pass the gas through lime water. observation if carbon dioxide is present. Um, Lime water turns milky, or lime water turns cloudy. Okay. By the way, lime water is calcium hydroxide, and when you pass the carbon dioxide gas from it, chemical reaction takes place, and as a result, you will get calcium carbonate and water. Now, this calcium carbonate has a milky solution or cloudy solution. And one more thing, this is acidic gas, and this is alkali. So, technically, it is an acid base reaction or acid alkali reaction. All right. That's an um, this is the extra information related to this concept. Though examiner is not asking this question here, but for in-depth analysis, I'm sharing this information with you. All right. Okay. Let's move on to the next part of the question. A sample of sodium hydrogen carbonate is completely decomposed. A total volume of 230 cm cube of carbon dioxide measured at RTP is produced. See, I've told you in the class, when we have volume at RTP, then we can find the moles of the gas. So my first step here is moles of carbon dioxide. To get the moles of carbon dioxide, I'm going to divide 230 by 24,000 cm cube. 24,000 cm cube is the molar volume at RTP. So moles is going to be how much? 230 divided by 24,000 is going to be 9.583 into 10 to the power minus 3. Okay. So I've got the moles of carbon dioxide. By the way, let's read the question again. Calculate the mass of the sample of sodium hydrogen carbonate. So to get the mass, first of all, we need to find the moles of sodium hydrogen carbonate. And for that, let's take the molar ratio from the equation. So from the equation, we know carbon dioxide has 1 mole and sodium hydrogen carbonate has 2 moles, right? So the molar ratio between sodium hydrogen carbonate and carbon dioxide is 2:1. When we have 9.583 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles, so the moles of sodium hydrogen carbonate would be 0.01916 moles. To get the MR, to get the mass, I need to find out the MR of sodium hydrogen carbonate. Sodium has a relative atomic mass of 23, hydrogen is 1, carbon is 12, oxygen is 16. We have 3 oxygen atom into 3. So 16 times 3 plus 12 plus 1 plus 23 is going to be 84. Now I can find the mass of sodium hydrogen carbonate with sodium hydrogen carbonate, because we know the mass and we know the MR and we know the moles. 0.01916 into 84. So it's going to be how much? Multiply by 0.01916. So it's basically, my bad, 0.01916 into 84. It's going to be 1.60944. So obviously examiner is looking for the two significant figures. So for two significant figures, I'm going to write 1.6 Okay, so that's the end of this question. That's again an easy question, guys. Let's move on to the next one. Fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine are elements in group 7. These elements are also called halogens. Okay. Bromine has a low boiling point. It is a liquid at room temperature. Describe the arrangement and motion of molecules in liquid bromine. Okay. Since it is a liquid, so obviously irregular arrangement exists in the liquid state. And obviously, hmm, irregular, that's a tricky part. In which particles are little away from each other, and motion of the molecules, and they move randomly. I mean, they will have a random motion, okay? And they move randomly over each other. All right. Explain why bromine has a low boiling point. Use idea about structure and bonding. Bromine exhibit covalent bonding and has molecular structure. So it exhibit weak van der Waals forces. Weak van der Waals forces also called intermolecular forces. But van der Waals forces is the term which I believe you need to use. Because intermolecular forces usually हम बताते हैं when students ninth class में होते हैं, but in the 11th grade we usually talk about van der Waals forces, but it doesn't make any difference, all right? So either you can write van der Waals forces or you can write intermolecular forces, both are same, and you will get marks on both the terminologies. Fluorine reacts with potassium to make an ionic compound. Obviously, ionic compound is formed when non-metal and metal react together. So potassium is metal, fluorine is non-metal, which is why they will react together to give potassium fluoride, which is an ionic compound. Suggest two physical properties of potassium fluoride. In other words, examiner is looking for the physical properties of ionic compound. We have discussed this in class. So all ionic compounds are solids. At RTP, high melting and boiling point. All right. Hmm. soluble in water, conducts electricity in aqueous state. Aqueous state or aqueous medium is the same thing. So I have written all the possible uh, physical properties of ionic compounds. You just need to write any two of them from these. All right. So मैं अगर आपकी जगह होता मैं solid लिखता, high melting and boiling point लिखता, and that's it. Construct the ionic equation to show the formation of potassium ions from potassium atoms. Okay. Potassium atom is potassium atom converting into potassium ion. So potassium is found in group 1 of the periodic table, which is why it will have a +1 charge, and obviously it loses 1 electron. Okay. Um, construct ionic half equation to show the formation of fluoride ions from fluorine molecule. Okay, fluorine molecule exists in diatomic state. It is converting into fluoride ions, and obviously fluorine will gain electron to complete its octet. Okay, so since we have two fluorine here, so I'm going to write 2 here, and which is why I'm going to write 2 here also. Chlorine gas is bubbled into aqueous potassium iodide. A reaction takes place. Okay. Chlorine is an oxidizing agent. All right. If chlorine is an oxidizing agent, let me tell you, potassium iodide is a reducing agent. In fact, iodide ion in potassium iodide is a reducing agent. To be very specific, very precise, potassium iodide is a reducing agent. That's a general term. In To be very precise, iodide ion in potassium iodide is a reducing agent. Name the two products of this reaction. Okay, let me write the equation, and we have discussed this reaction in class. So this is chlorine molecule reacting with sodium, potassium iodide. No, not an issue. Chlorine is more reactive, displaces iodide into iodine, and will turn to potassium chloride. So that's the equation we have given you in class. So chlorine has a yellow-green color. Okay. Oh, two products, iodine and potassium chloride. Oh, my bad. Examiner is looking for the products. Two products. Potassium chloride and iodine. Okay. Describe the observations made during the reaction. Obviously, iodine is obtained, so it shows a brown solution. And also, chlorine has a yellow-green color, which will disappear. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Nickel is a transition element. Nickel has a good electrical conductivity and good thermal conductivity. Nickel is also ductile and malleable. State two other physical properties of nickel that are typical of transition elements. Examiner is looking for the typical property of a transition element. So nickel acts as a catalyst. Nickel forms colored compounds. Um, nickel shows variable oxidation state. So you can write um, oh, physical property. My bad. Physical property. Other physical properties. So high density, high melting and boiling point. Colored compounds, formation of colored compounds show variable oxidation state. These are the chemical properties, guys. Okay, not the physical properties. The physical properties of nickel can be explained using ideas about structure and bonding. Explain why nickel has a good electrical conductivity. Nickel has a good electrical conductivity because of the presence of C of delocalized electrons. Delocalized means moving electrons. Electrons which moves freely from one place to another place. Okay. Next, why nickel is ductile? Because the layers of atoms in nickel can slide over each other. Okay. Compound X contain nickel, carbon, and oxygen. X contains 28.1% by mass of carbon. Okay. So we have nickel, carbon, and oxygen. So carbon 28.1% by mass. Oxygen has 37.4% by mass. So when we add these two values and subtract from 100, I'll get the value of nickel. Let me add these two values, 28.1 plus 37.4. 65.5, 100 minus 65.5, you will get 34.5. Okay. Now this is the mass of element. Let's talk about the MR, sorry, relative atomic mass of nickel. Carbon is 12, oxygen is 16. Let me get the mass of nickel by using the periodic table. So nickel is basically 59, I believe. Yeah, 59. Okay. Yeah, 59. Now using these two values, I can find the moles of each element. 34.5 divided by 59. 28.1 divided by 12. 37.4 divided by 16. So 34.5 divided by 59, it's going to be 0.5847. 28.1 divided by 12, 2.3416. Then 37.4 divided by 16, it's going to be 2.3375. Now 0.586847 is the least value. So simplest ratio determine कर लेते हैं. So to get the simplest ratio, we need to divide the lowest value from all the elements. Then 2.3416 divided by this value, 0.5. 0.5. 0.5 divided by 2. 2.3416 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 divided by 847, then 2.3375 divided by 0.5847. And this is going to be the 1. 2.3375 divided by 0.5847. So it's going to be 3.99, which becomes 4. 2.3416 divided by 0.5847. It's going to be 4. That indicates we have 1 nickel, we have 4 carbon, we have 4 oxygen. So the empirical formula is going to be nickel C4O4. Okay, that's the empirical formula. I hope you get the logic. Let's start with this. Nickel reacts slowly with dilute hydrochloric acid to form aqueous nickel 2 ions and hydrogen. Construct the ionic equation for this reaction. Include state symbols also. So nickel is basically an element reacting with hydrochloric acid, converting into nickel to chloride and hydrogen gas. See, this chloride ion is a spectator ion, so it will cancel out with each other. So I'm going to cancel these chloride ions. So the final ionic equation is going to be nickel plus 2 hydrogen ions, arrow, nickel 2 ions, which has a charge of 2 plus, and H2 gas. So this is the ionic equation I'm going to write in this. Let's talk about the state symbols. Since nickel is a metal and all metals are solid at RTP, it is ion, so its medium has to be aqueous. Its medium is also aqueous. Hydrogen is a gas at RTP. Okay. Predict if nickel reacts with aqueous copper 2 ions. Explain your answer. Prediction. Yes, it will react. Explanation, because its reactivity is greater than that of copper. And nickel is not given in the reactivity series, then मैंने कैसे determine किया ये? Because nickel is more reactive than hydrogen, because nickel displaces hydrogen ion in the form of hydrogen gas. So if nickel is more reactive than hydrogen, ultimately nickel is also more reactive than copper. All right. So मैंने इस reaction से judge किया कि nickel is more reactive than copper because hydrogen is more reactive than copper, and since nickel is displacing hydrogen ion in the form of hydrogen gas, that indicates that nickel is also more reactive than copper. Okay, so that's the whole background of this last part of the question. Let's move on to the next one. Oh my god, this question is about an unsaturated hydrocarbon called ethine. Unsaturated contain double bond and triple bond between carbon atoms. All right. So this is the structure of ethine. Its molecular formula is C2H2. By the way, um, when we were discussing chemical bonding, uh, I have given you the dot and cross diagram to show the electronic arrangement in the molecule of ethine. Show outer shell electrons only. So we have carbon, and this is also carbon, and this is hydrogen atom. Okay, so this is carbon, this is carbon, this is hydrogen, and this is hydrogen. Now, this carbon atom has 4 valence electrons. All right. So 1, 2, 3, and this one is 4. This carbon atom also has 4 electrons. 1, 2, 3, and this 4. Hydrogen electron is represented by cross. Okay. By the way, between the carbon atom, we have triple bond. So according to my lecture, 1 electron of each element shares. Sorry, 3 electrons of each element share together. So 3 electron from this carbon and 3 electron from this carbon. Both the element shares 3 electrons from each other, which is why you will get triple bond between the carbon atom. Okay. I hope it makes sense to you. A sample of ethine has a mass of 0.130 gram. So first of all, take out the MR of ethine, 12 times 2 plus 1 times 2. So it's going to be 26. Okay. Now, if we know the mass and if we know the MR, I can find the moles. So 0.130 divided by 26. So 0.130 divided by 26 is going to be 5 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles. Okay. Examiner is looking for the number of molecules of ethine in this sample. And by the way, when we talk about molecules, we need to consider Avogadro constant. And 1 mole of Avogadro constant has a value of 6.02 times 10 to the power 23. So 1 mole of C2H2, that is ethine, contain 6.02 into 10 to the power 23 molecules. When we have 5 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles, how much molecules we have? So into 6.02 exponent 23. So it's going to be 3.01 into 10 to the power 21 molecules. Okay. So that's the answer. Okay. Now examiner is looking for the total number of atoms in this sample of ethine. In this sample of ethine. So we have this much moles of ethine. Ethine has total 4 atoms, 2 carbon and 2 hydrogen. So it has total number of atoms 4. Okay, let me check. Let me give you an idea here. C2H2 gives you 2 carbon atom and 2 hydrogen atom. So basically it has 1 mole according to the equation, and it has total 4 moles of atoms. When we have got 5 into 10 to the power minus 3 moles of ethine, so moles of atom is going to be 5 exponent minus 3 into 4. 0.02 moles of atoms. Okay, that's the first part. 1 mole equals to 6.02 times 10 to the power 23 atoms. When we have 0.02 moles, the atoms would be into 6.02 exponent 23, 1.204 into 10 to the power 22. Okay. So in the same sample, this sample contained this much moles, so मैंने इन moles को use कर लिया था. ठीक है? I hope you get the point. Let's move on to the next page. Explain why ethine is a hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon consists of carbon and hydrogen only. So ethine also consists of carbon and hydrogen only. Next part, suggests the observation when ethine gas is bubbled into aqueous bromine. Since ethine is unsaturated hydrocarbon, and when we treat it with aqueous bromine, obviously aqueous bromine decolorizes. But instead of writing decolorizes or aqueous bromine decolorizes, I have clearly instructed in the class that you need to write red brown to colorless. Now, aqueous bromine has a red brown color or orange color, and it will turn into colorless. Okay. Ethine is formed when calcium carbide. By the way, the formula of calcium carbide is CaC2, reacts with water. Water is H2O. Calcium carbide contain these two ions. All right, I have already given you the structure. I mean, formula of calcium carbide. Deduce the formula of calcium carbide. That's CaC2. Okay. Now, when we have similar charges, then they will cancel out with each other, and obviously these two ions will combine together to give CaC2. Oh my goodness. This paper has a lot of questions, guys. Let's move on to the next question. Ethene is again unsaturated hydrocarbon, and it is used to make ethanol and polyethylene is a polymer. The displayed formula of ethene is given. We have given you this displayed formula in polymerization, right? Alkene, such as ethene, are manufactured from hydrocarbons such as C12H26. Name this process. So when long chain hydrocarbon is converted into short chain hydrocarbon, then this process is called cracking. Next, describe the conditions used in this process. Obviously, high temperature, and catalyst. If you remember, it is a mixture of silicon dioxide and aluminum oxide. Its name is aluminosilicate. Either you need to write aluminosilicate or just write catalyst or just write the composition of catalyst, which is SiO2 and aluminum oxide. By the way, the mixture of these two compounds is also called zeolites. Okay, but I believe that examiner going to accept this term only. All of them are right, but if you write catalyst, you will get the marks. Okay. Ethene reacts with the steam to make ethanol. This is reversible reaction. All right. Describe and explain the effect of increasing the temperature on the rate of forward reaction. Whew, all right. So first of all, we need to find out if this reaction is reversible, then okay. So we are increasing the temperature. So rate of forward reaction also increases. Okay. Rate of forward reaction increases as temperature increases. kinetic energy increases, if kinetic energy increases, collision frequency increases. If collision frequency increases, rate of reaction increases. Okay. If collision frequency increases, molecules move faster. Molecules move faster. Okay. Describe and explain the effect of increasing the pressure on the position of equilibrium while keeping the temperature constant. Okay, first of all, take out the total moles on the reactant side. So it's going to be 2. And the total moles on the product side is going to be 1. So according to the concept, when we increase the pressure, equilibrium favors towards right hand side because of less number of mole. Okay. Increasing pressure favors equilibrium towards right hand side because of less number of moles or lesser volume. Okay. Let's move on to the next part of the question. Ethene is used to make polymer polyethylene. This polymer is used to make plastic bags. Draw the structure of polyethylene. Your structure should show 2 repeating units. I've given you the instruction during theory classes, all right? So let me draw this for you. This is the structure of ethene. Let me copy this structure. See? So what we can do is we need to remove one bond from here, and technically this bond shifts between these 2 carbon atoms. We need to remove this bond from here, and obviously this bond shifts here, और यहाँ पर भी एक bond होगा. And according to the lecture, half bond inside the bracket and half bond outside the bracket. And obviously this is going to be the structure of polyethylene. State 2 environmental challenges caused by the disposal of polyethylene. First of all, they are non-biodegradable. So we need to place them on landfill sites. Landfill sites, which are quite expensive. So occupy a larger piece of land. Second, Accumulation of plastic in ocean. Also, carbon dioxide gas is given, which causes global warming. Oh no, वो तो combustion पे होता है. Ethene reacts with hydrogen in the presence of nickel catalyst. That reaction is called hydrogenation. All right. Explain why this is an example of addition reaction. Because when two molecules are reacting together, only one molecule is formed. Okay. Draw the displaced formula. Displaced formula. Displaced formula means you need to show all the atoms and all the bonds. Um, when ethene reacts with hydrogen in the presence of nickel catalyst, obviously ethane is formed. Ethane has a formula of C2H6. It is a saturated hydrocarbon, which means between the carbon atom, we need to make a single bond. To satisfy the valency of carbon, we need to put hydrogen atoms. And this is going to be the structure of ethane. Okay, that's an easy thing. Question number 8. Petroleum is a mixture of hydrocarbon, most of which are alkanes. Table shows some of the unbranched alkane. Unbranched alkane means no alkyl group, no alkyl branch, or absence of alkyl branch, or absence of alkyl group. And the number of carbon atoms in one molecule of alkane. So decane, ethane, methane, pentane, tetradecane. Deduce the molecular formula of tetradecane. Okay, that's an easy piece of thing. All of them are alkanes, and alkanes has a general formula CnH2n plus 2, if you remember. Now I'll put 14 here because n has a value of 14, so I'm going to write 14 into 2 plus 2. So it becomes 14, 28 plus 2. So it becomes C14H30. So that's the molecular formula of tetradecane. Okay. State the name of alkane which has the highest viscosity. Highest viscosity, matlab thick liquid. And obviously, as the number of carbon atom increases, viscosity increases. So tetradecane is going to be the correct option or correct answer because it has the most number of carbon atoms. So it has the highest viscosity. Okay. Petroleum is separated into useful fractions by fractional distillation. Explain how petroleum is separated from fractional distillation. We have discussed this in class. First of all, petroleum is heated so petroleum has fraction. Petroleum has different fraction with different boiling point. So by using fractional distillation, these fractions can be separated on the basis of their boiling point. Okay. Methane and ethane are both in the refinery gas fraction. State one use for the refinery gas fraction. Methane is used as a natural gas. Ethane is used for cooking and heating. So both the gases is used for cooking and heating. Okay. Decane is in the naphtha fraction. State one use of naphtha fraction. Naphtha is used for chemical feedstock. All right. Oh my goodness. Let's move on to the next question. How many questions this paper has? I think. Oh my goodness. Total 10 questions. State the meaning of the term anhydrous. I've given you this instruction in the class. Anhydrous means without water. Anhydrated means or hydrous means with water. Anhydrous copper sulfate is added to water. State the color of the solution form, blue solution form. Remember one thing, anhydrous copper sulfate is colorless. When you add water in it, it will give you a blue solution. That's a test for water also, okay? Aqueous ammonia is added dropwise until in excess to a small volume of aqueous copper sulfate. Describe the observation during this reaction. Um, First of all, blue precipitates are formed. Precipitates soluble in excess. In aqueous ammonia, to give a dark blue solution. Describe the observation when aqueous barium nitrate is added to aqueous copper sulfate. Let me make the equation here. I think in when we write the equation, we'll get the clear observation. So this is copper sulfate and it is reacting with barium nitrate. obviously barium sulfate is formed, and these barium sulfates has a white precipitates, and copper nitrate will remain as it is. So I think copper sulfate has a blue color, copper nitrate also has a blue color, so I cannot write blue color. Okay, instead I'm going to write white precipitates of barium sulfate because that's a different observation. We can make it from this part of the question. So I'm going to write white precipitates. Aqueous copper sulfate is electrolyzed separately with carbon electrodes. Carbon electrodes also called graphite electrodes. And why are we using graphite electrodes? Because graphite conducts electricity because of the presence of delocalized electron. And graphite is basically an inert electrode also. And with copper electrode, my bad, copper is a reactive electrode. Okay, no problem at all. We have discussed both in the class. Uh, Observation at anode, bubbles of gas. And observation at cathode, pink brown solid deposit. Copper has a pink brown color. Okay. Also, since anode is made up of copper, at anode oxidation takes place, which means this copper electrode dissolves itself because of oxidation. So because of oxidation, size is smaller, and observation at cathode, pink brown solid. And obviously in both the case, the mass of electrode increases, right? So size increases in both the cases. Size of both the electrode increases. Explain why copper to sulfate conducts electricity, but solid copper to sulfate cannot. Because in aqueous medium, we have free mobile ions. Where while in solid, no free mobile ions, so cannot conduct electricity. Okay. All right. Last question. Air is a mixture of gases. State the percentage by volume of oxygen in clean dry air. That's 21%, I believe. Then the percentage of carbon dioxide in air is increasing. State one adverse effect of this increasing percentage of carbon dioxide. Causes greenhouse effect. or causes global warming? State one strategy to reduce this increase of the percentage of carbon dioxide. Mm, use electric vehicles. Use electric vehicles की जगह लिख लीजिए use renewable source of energy. That is electric vehicles or um, plantation. Okay. Some air pollutants such as sulfur dioxide causes acid rain. Name one other air pollutant that causes acid rain. Nitrogen dioxide. An examiner is looking for the name, which is why I'm not going to write formula here. The burning of fossil fuel contains sulfur in power station produces sulfur dioxide emission. Describe one way these sulfur dioxide emissions are reduced. So, reacting sulfur dioxide with powdered calcium carbonate in flue gas desulfurization plant. Flue gas means waste gases. Okay. So that's the end of this paper, I believe. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.